Welcome back to WCS Winter, where we get to talk about all the cool things that are StarCraft related here in Group D for Europe. My name is Fear Dragon. I am joined by Nate here at the desk. And Nate, I know that you've been playing a little bit of Protoss here and there. Is that correct?
Of course.
Now, of course, I know that you are a connoisseur of the different gateway skins.
Oh, I'm a zealot spammer. I spam zealots hard, man. I can't do it without gateways.
Well, tell me, what do you think about the more recent War Chest gateway skin that is actually available to all of you wonderful viewers out there?
It's so beautiful. You know, I personally, growing up, you get to go living through that 2000s period where everyone started wearing black. Everybody was, very sad. My hair was really long in high school. That gateway just brings back all those memories,
It's great, man. That was such a great time of your life.
Yeah. I mean, if
so
you play with those skins, you turn on Mr. Brightside, you do your Zealot, Archon, DT all in, and you cry yourself to sleep after your opponent GG's out, or you GG out.
This is getting too real for me, but if you are interested, pick up that War Chest. 25% of the proceeds go toward esports initiatives in 2019. Including awesome events like this one, WCS Winter, and the players that are going to be playing in this next match. It is, in fact, going to be another Protoss versus Zerg, Denver versus Hellraiser. What are your thoughts, Nate?
Well, I mean, Hellraiser, you imagine, pretty high temperature. Denver, probably frigid this time of year. So,
yeah,
balance.
How does someone from Europe come up with the name Denver?
I don't know. They have a Georgia in Europe, so maybe there's a Denver there I just don't know about.
I would say that maybe he was going to be one of those people that picked his first name, but then he realized it was stolen because
maybe his dad's a huge fan of the Broncos for some reason. I don't know.
That's true, because all those Europeans that are huge American football fans.
That's why you would name. Yeah, I mean tis the season, right? You know what I mean? I'm just waiting for one of our pro gamers to come in with the name Punxsutawney. Of course, they probably have to truncate it a little bit because you couldn't fit.
What was the verdict, by the way, on Groundhog Day yesterday?
Winter is over in like a week, guys. So
apparently, guys, we're going to have to escalate the speed of WCS Winter.
WCS Winter has been condensed into the next 7 days.
We are actually just not going to turn the broadcast off at all for the next week. We're just going to continuously churn through this so we can get through before IEM Katowice or anything like that.
That's right.
But I think that we are almost ready to go again. Hellraiser has been one of those names that Jeff was talking about how Roddy's been hyping this guy up, saying that he's one of the best Protoss players in Europe right now, which I think he hasn't quite gotten the results in tournaments to really showcase that just yet, but this is a good opportunity for him to try and prove that.
All right, well, let's see it. This is WCS Winter. I mean, this kind of coming off of this challenger type format that we had last year, this is the opportunity that a player like this gets to prove themselves in a little bit more of an official capacity. You're stepping into the official gilded, rose-lined WCS arena. This is not your back alley Yu-Gi-Oh battles, okay? This is the big stage.
Is that where you used to play Yu-Gi-Oh? In the back alleys?
Me and Tasteless own that alley, okay?
All right. Well, we're going to be starting up here at the top left-hand corner of the map. Top of the blue Zerg player from Infinity Gaming. He is Denver.
His opponent in the southeast, named after one of my favorite movies of all time, he is Hellraiser.
So we get another Protoss versus Zerg. Denver is one of those players that I feel really started hitting his stride in the past 4 or so months. He was just doing so well, and it didn't necessarily get to show as much because a lot of the big WCS events and stuff were kind of ending, but a lot of the online tournaments, Denver was just absolutely killing it, and we kind of got to see a little bit of him start to hit that stride toward the very end, right before Montreal. I think Denver is probably going to be one of the players to look out for in 2019. And this is where it all starts.
Yeah. You do see his name pop up a lot in the online tournaments. This is a matchup I think that both players are happy to go into. I think this, when you look at a group as well, I mean, Gerald is not necessarily a player that either of these guys are going to be as worried about compared to someone like Lambo.
Mhm.
So I like it because the rest of this group is very wide open. We don't know who's going to be able to make it through, right? Lambo can make someone like Gerald look really bad. He is a player that I honestly do not know anything about at all. And maybe he's feeling like his hope here is to get on second place. But really what I'm trying to say is this is not one of those groups where it's like, all right, we got Scarlet, Neeb, Epic, and Seether. It's like, well, we already know, Scarlet and Neeb are getting out.
I'd agree with that. In my opinion, I think in name recognition, or at least past results, not necessarily like Roddy hype levels, I would put the two Zergs in this group as the big favorites to make it out, Lambo and Denver. And then I put the Protoss players as kind of being the underdogs. Now, again, it's not accounting for the Roddy factor and saying Hellraiser has been playing so well lately.
Hellraiser could open a portal to a dark, twisted dimension and trap Denver there, which would be a pretty horrific way to get rid of him.
Is that against the WCS rulebook?
I don't think it says anything in there about sending people to
the Shadow Realm.
The Shadow Realm. I don't. The last time I checked, no. I think Hellraiser's place is a little worse than the Shadow Realm, but yeah. I don't know if there's anything in the rules about that.
What kind of Shadow Realm exists in Denver? The back alley streets of Denver.
I think it's the non-John Elway Broncos games. I think that's about it. So.
Yeah. Fair enough. It is going to be a Stargate opening, by the way. It's a Phoenix first, so he's going to be picking off that Overlord that's already seen the Stargate as it makes its way forward.
So the producer has brought us full circle. Apparently there's a Denver in Australia, and there's 2 of them in the United Kingdom.
But Denver is not actually from either one of those places.
Well, tough cookies.
Tough cookies. He still picked a random city name, not in his country. Yeah.
Denver's unique enough. I don't know. If you look around enough, I don't know that there's any or many cities that are unique. Maybe Scranton. I've only ever seen one Scranton.
That's true. There's only ever one Scranton, right?
Yeah. There's a Manhattan.
Just like Springfield. Springfield, another very unique one?
No, there's more than one of those. Pretty sure.
Wait, were you serious about only knowing about one Scranton?
Yeah.
There's definitely more than one Scranton.
I wouldn't be surprised.
100%.
There's another Manhattan in Kansas.
I thought you were making a joke because there are so many Scrantons.
We're talking about too much American stuff, I guess. What's your favorite European city that there's probably a million of?
Probably Amsterdam. Where Rotterdam's from.
Oh yeah.
Giving us a lot of good.
Well, we don't have Roddy here to talk to us about how great Amsterdam is.
That's true.
We could maybe talk about this video game a little bit because we do have that Twilight Council finishing up. There are a bunch of gateways being added and a Warp Prism. Now I am a little bit curious since the Twilight's done and he's getting all of this stuff without an upgrade.
And
okay,
no
Templar Archives.
Okay, I was gonna say with Templar Archives also not coming down because this could have been just the Stargate into an Archon drop or something. But getting up charge behind this a little bit faster, we'll see. He's also adding, or got with his 4 gateways going up to a total of 6 now. So this is gonna be a pretty scary looking attack, but it is with a 3rd base behind it for now.
Okay, now I wasn't sure if he was winding up for some big attack. The Warp Prism is gonna move out, and I think we just got confirmation. Apparently there are 13 Scrantons in America. I love it. I feel like I'm in one of those really awful low-budget superhero shows where just someone is doing everything. It's amazing.
Okay, I guess the Oracle's here, so it's fine.
Yeah.
I was like,
I really like him bringing the Oracle because a lot of people, when you do that warp out on the field, where you're like, all right, I'm just gonna warp in the High Templar, do the merge out on the field as close as I can, make this attack hit as fast as possible. It's the Zerg's dream to get a surround on those and shut them down in advance, but the Oracle play really nice. Here's the Archon drop inside of the main base.
Oh, if he can buy some space, he could go into warp in mode and warp in a bunch of Zealots here, but he doesn't want to risk it. The Queens are a little bit too close. Just decides to back off for now, warps in some Zealots at home to help defend that 3rd base, and is still making workers. He went up well past the kind of, oh, this is a fake 3rd, I'm just going to attack you with 6 gateways and a bunch of Zealots and Archons mode. Gets up +1 weapons, and he's going to put some pressure on.
I like it a lot. He's still got the Prism to put the pressure on, as you were saying. The Zealots are going to be able to hit from the south. Now Roach Speed is on the way. We do have the Hydralisk Den, we have the Baneling Nest, but without Banelings being on the map, and without a huge number of Roaches on the field either, these Archons and Zealots are going to be able to really split the attention of Denver as Hellraiser starts to carve a little bit of a path for himself.
Oh, remember that Zealots will win versus unmicroed Roaches one-on-one. The Roaches are starting to come out in slightly higher numbers. The Warp Prism I think actually might have
Got
just gotten
sniped.
picked off over there by the Queens.
War Prism did get picked off, immediately recalled and saved those Archons. They are hefty chompers. I'm not sure they're going to be able to make it out of that wall.
Yeah, unfortunately.
There's another Prism about to finish.
Well, this is actually where eventually you do the next level IQ play and you actually recall them to your third to get them out.
That's going to be a no for me, dog.
I actually wonder, is it economically better to chrono boost workers at this point in the game, or to recall the Archons out so you don't have to?
He's already building a
Because
Prism.
otherwise you have to kill a gateway to get.
He already has a Prism.
Oh, actually, right. I
You
forgot.
don't need
Flying
to buy
units.
a car if you live on top of the subway station, Fear Dragon.
I forgot about that for a moment.
It's okay. Big Roach attack, by the way.
This is
It's just
really
the Archons.
problematic.
Not really a whole lot to support this
No.
defense here for Hellraiser.
There's effectively no immortals out. The first immortal is about to pop, but even with the roaches starting to back off, a good amount of damage was done. 7 workers killed and delayed mining for a good bit of time. Not that many roaches even kind of went down there. This is a really effective attack and usage of the roaches he was already making to defend with.
Yeah. Really nice little counterattack there by Hellraiser. Or excuse me, by Denver. But, you know, didn't get a tremendous amount of damage. I mean, all things considered, it's still even on workers. So Denver has been taking these bases, sure, but he's not really dumped a lot of his supplier's larvae into saturating them. Instead, he's gearing up for another attack, as we have a bunch of speed banes. Now, there's roaches that are going to try to threaten the natural, while the rest of this army goes in from the north side of the third. Stasis Ward gets a good amount of the Zerglings, but the Banes crash straight into the Zealots, managing to get on top of the Archons. And now the Archons, very heavily injured, are going to eat some corrosive biles as they push back. And just as another Zealot Warp, trying to defend against this while the Oracle comes in.
Yeah, and at the same time, the Archons of the Zealots on the south side of the map get cleaned up. Those roaches are going to be coming back in just a little bit. And Hellraiser is starting to push this army back, but again, does he have many units over here? And looks like he has been able to warp in a few more Zealots to deal with that roach attack. Hellraiser taking some big damage, but is able to defend narrowly for a little bit.
I don't hate it, but he does need to get a 4th Nexus. Like, at this point, he's building up some power units, but he's not going at a crazy space, right? He's warping in Zealots to die to these units, right? He's trading and he's trading and he's trading, but Denver has access to a lot of resources. He's finished both bases on the southwest side of the map, and that means that as this battle progresses, as these players start to choke each other out in terms of these big trades, he will be able to continue to mine. And Hellraiser is going to be worrying about that main base economy soon. That natural is going to start to dry up a little bit. And as he keeps taking these big fights, how is he ever going to be able to leave his base?
The one thing I do like about Hellraiser's position is he is keeping, even though he's losing a lot of the Archons, he's keeping the Immortals alive. So that Immortal count starting to gradually grow, and these pure roach attacks are eventually going to start losing their value. They're eventually not going to be able to start trading nearly as well as they have so far. And of course, that is why Denver is mixing in Hydras. That's why Denver is getting up +2 weapons and muscular augments and all of that good stuff. But is he going to be able to continue to deny a 4th base for too much longer? Is he going to be able to capitalize on the economies built up?
It's a tough question. I mean, there's the probe. See, he heads over towards the 4th. Really need to be careful, because what Denver's doing here, and he's doing this as much as he possibly can, is really just trying to hit from 2 places at once and absolutely stretch the army of Hellraiser past the breaking point where he can't take any more bases, and he just gets stuck on this economy where it's like, yes, I'm just going to keep working Zealots and trading them out against Roaches, but look at this Roach army, dives on top, gets the Archon, going after the Immortals. Now a couple of Zealots are going to be warped outside of the natural expansion, but the first Immortal is down. Second one gets picked off, and the Hydras swing to the south side, and now it's just a huge Zerg force pushing in. Crozabel's going to be launched to block that ramp, Fear Dragon.
Yeah, going for the 1-2 punch for the entirety of this game, and while there is Hellraiser warping in the main base, finally the big right hook slaps down Hellraiser, and Denver takes the first game.
Not enough force behind that right hook, unfortunately. Hellraiser went for that attack, tried to get a lot of harass done. The counter pressure from Denver never really stopped, and he just did a great job of kind of keeping him locked in like that. He wasn't able to reinforce. He didn't get a setup of like anything with like shield batteries and cannons, which you can kind of do when you get the 4th base economy and you start trickling in that much money. The drone count was very similar, so it really just comes down to Denver doing a great job at multitasking and pulling apart that Protoss defense. It's so hard to choose where to send which units.
it was not the direct economic damage we oftentimes see where you break through and then you start killing a bunch of workers, or you kill a base or something. It was just picking off key units over and over and over again and forcing Hellraiser to keep remaking all of those. And when he had to remake those expensive units, then he didn't have enough resources or didn't have the space to go take a 4th base and start transitioning out or build up this mass army to easily push things back. And eventually,
because
Denver...
Income-wise, it was very close the whole way through. Workers active is almost dead even until the very final moments when he does break the base. But yeah, as you said, it was just a lot of key units that were lost. Stuff like that Warp Prism resets your cycle for being able to counterattack. And when you have to rebuild the Prism, you're now building an Immortal, and those Immortals, those are the units that really generate, you know, exponential value as you add more.
And there was the final kind of push in there. And I like this. The Denver, you were talking about the 1-2, 1-2, 1-2 moving in from the north and the south side at the same time. Finally, the last attack that he did, he just pulled the North Army and was like, I'm just going to attack you in one place. With only one location, your army has been split up this entire game. And I'm actually going to only have to deal with half of your army right now. And by the time the other half of the army got to help out the second half of the army on the south side, first army was already dead. Yeah. So Denver was only really ever fighting half of the army at that last engagement.
You could say that to the Protoss bases, he really raised some hell.
That is quite true. I would respond with a pun on Denver, but I feel like there's not a whole lot on that one.
No, there's not.
Well, game number 2, we're moving on to King's Cove.
It's possible if a Disruptor were to hit a big shot in a large clump of his units, you could say that they got knocked a mile high.
Are we still on that Lambo Gerald game?
Oh, no. I
know. Starting up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Zerg player from Infinity Gaming. He is Denver. Clement.
Yeah. He's leading the series against this man in the southeast, the red Protoss player. He is Hellraiser. They say Denver's skill shots go just a little bit further than all the other players.
That reference is going over my head right now.
Sorry, it's an air density reference because Denver's so high up.
Oh, didn't know that about Denver.
Did you know that the longest kicking records in football are actually all at Denver Stadium because the air is so thin?
I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
I know so little about Denver.
Well,
the city.
If you've never lived somewhere elevated, the perks are you can kick and throw stuff further. Also, water boils at a lower temperature.
That's quite useful.
I think where I'm from, the elevation I grew up in, I think they taught us it was something like it was 98 Celsius instead of 100 or something. Like it can end up being like a degree or two less. Yeah.
Your school is so accurate. I feel like my school would.
I'm from the most backwards place in the world. I'm just saying that they were like, yes, you live in a mountain. It's a little bit easier to boil water.
That's so funny. I feel like even if the elevation was a little bit different at my school, they would have been like, yeah, it's like about 100.
Yeah. So
plus or minus a bit.
Otacon has informed me in my ear that it is actually, apparently in Denver, you can boil as low as 95 Celsius.
Wow.
That's pretty crazy.
That 5-degree difference.
You know,
you can eat your instant ramen as an aspiring pro gamer a little bit faster.
Yeah. I was going to say, you know, you'd spend less to heat your water, but then you'd be freezing most of the year anyway, so you'd spend more on heat, probably.
Yeah.
There you go. This is the high-level analysis you all came here for. Shout out to Denver for giving me something to riff about. Stargate opening out of Hellraiser. Not super surprising. This is standard. We see this a bunch. Oracle last game wasn't crazy, but he did use it very well as a support unit.
I love that.
The defense was nice, but the support for the robotics facility to keep the Warp Prism alive, it's something that we don't see a crazy amount of, usually because that Oracle is running around somewhere or...
It's almost out of energy or something.
Exactly.
Well, the Adept is also making its way forward, tries a shade on in, sees that it's probably not going to be super duper safe to move forward. Actually, there's really just the Queens there, so the Lings being on the other side of the map means that it was a bit safer, but he's going to play it a little bit closer to the chest, pulls that Adept back, doesn't want to die to any kind of big Ling flood, and he's going to just get up that second Phoenix, or sorry, first Phoenix.
and then going into the Oracle after that. I always find this to be an interesting question because almost any Protoss player, like real Protoss player, not someone who just randomly plays occasionally, will tell you something different about whether you want to get the Oracle first to make the Zerg build the spores a little bit faster than they might want to, and you're thinking, oh yeah, well the Zerg is going to scout the Stargate anyway, right? So opening with the Phoenix first doesn't really do anything unless you're trying to hide the follow-up. So in this case, hiding the follow-up may be a reason why he would go for the Phoenix first, because it's adding a second Stargate, Fear Dragon.
Yep, the double Stargate play. We'll see if and when this actually gets scouted, because the Phoenix does a great job cleaning up all those overlords, and of course you should not ever be able to get these lings into the main base. So usually is when the Protoss player starts to move out with around 5 or so Phoenix, that the Zerg player realizes what's going on. Sporecaller a little bit later to finish up here. 3 workers killed, and both the Oracle and the Phoenix survive, so not bad.
Not bad at all. Going into +1 weapons. Ooh, ooh, ooh. We got a little. We're heading into Roddy build territory.
Well, he got Warp Gate at least, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true. He did get Warp Gate.
Is it truly a Roddy build if you have gateway units? Ugh.
Rotterdam, I know he doesn't like barcodes, but I think that's also because anybody, even if he used one, would immediately know it was him.
Be like, wow, is he going for a Stargate?
Phoenix has +1 attack at 4 minutes and 30 seconds. I don't think this is anybody else. Don't think this could be anybody else. Everyone does usually get the Warp Gate with that.
You know what'd be the sickest?
Good upgrade.
You know we were talking earlier about how if you see Warp Gate not being researched for a little bit, then oftentimes it'll look like a Stargate opening.
Yeah.
Roddy's next level play could be that he starts up +1 air weapons before his Stargate and then throws down a Stargate.
Oh my god.
And it'll look like a gateway opening.
That's a 3,000 IQ play, Ravi.
That's what I'm here for. I could never execute any of these 3,000 IQ plays.
That's such a valuable little like mind game tip there. I can't believe you just gave that out.
I know. Florencio was giving me some amazing tips. They're actually so good. I don't want to reveal more than one of them. One of them was so good.
All right, well, here's the Phoenix harass coming up. Picks up an egg on accident. That's not exactly what you want to go for. Follow-up is a very fast fleet bacon. So, you know, one of the things that In Control was talking about in yesterday's broadcast, if you guys missed it, when it came to the big air plays from Protoss, the tipping point for the carrier when it comes to that damage output against a lot of these units that start with armor, like the Queens, the Spore Crawlers, and then, of course, you know, you add up the Hydras, is that +2 attack. And this Fleet Beacon is lining up about as perfectly as possible with +1 finishing. If he wants to go into carriers, he can, and which he immediately starts doing, he can get the +2 attack really quickly as well. So this is an extremely streamlined, I'm going to just say it, carrier rush, about as macro cheese of a carrier rush as you can do. And I love it. I love seeing the carriers, but we have also seen a lot of Protoss that try this struggle, particularly going back to, what was it, the Hearthstone laser game on Automaton where he just went too fast into carriers. He's like, I've got 10 of them.
Smack down.
And he had nothing else. He had no support units, and Corruptors were just like, you know, thank you, well met.
I feel like part of this has to be him also keeping Denver a bit in the dark about it. Just because, like you said, there's that big period of vulnerability here. And the Phoenix are going to be moving around. They're going to try and buy a little bit of space and time. And Denver's going to realize, okay, your Phoenix production is stopped. But a lot of the times, Protoss players are just following this up with charge lots. Or they're following this up with a bunch of Adepts that have resonating glaives on the ground. I think that one's a little bit more rare. Or just going into, you know, Immortals and charge lots and Archons, that kind of stuff. The typical Protoss composition.
Well, if you were an underdog in a PVZ and you're down 0-1 in a best
already spotted.
It does get scouted by that Speed Overseer. I'm going to say, Fear Dragon, this would be one of those builds that could still work because the respect that you need to show to a carrier-based army, pre-nerf, post-nerf, you got to be careful. It is very easy to throw a game against carriers. It takes one bad fight where you're like, oh, I can do this, and then all of a sudden you realize half your army's dead, and you're like, oh, the interceptors are still chasing me. And then the game is over, and everyone's like, well, why would you do that? Why did you take that fight? It can go downhill so fast. And I like that he's got the cannon up front here, too, that you're showing us, because that's just one of those things that could go wrong. It's like, oh, if I split up and your slow carriers can't get around to all your bases, and I get bird roaches everywhere, that's a problem. But double Spires being added to deal with this.
Yep, Denver gonna just try and make a bunch of Corruptors, and while you guys were talking about this, and I really like that discussion you guys had about what is that tipping point for carriers, and it used to be around 5 or 6, now it is a good bit higher, and we definitely saw that in the Hearthstone game from yesterday or day before yesterday, whichever day it was. It's all starting to blend together, a lot of StarCraft, but if that
block there, the roaches try to press the ramp, nothing doing.
Yeah, Denver's going to have the opportunity to make roughly 10 or 11 Corruptors here once these double Spires finish. And when you go for double Spire, you're looking to get upgrades. You don't just get double Spire and you're like, I'm just going to make some Corruptors with no upgrades. No, that's not how you play it out. He's going for +1 weapons, might be going for +1 armor. And
yeah, the second Spire is almost done. I do think armor is really big.
So important for
Corruptors start with 2 armor, which makes them already very durable units, but investing into those upgrades, especially because of how much carriers are affected by them, is really important as well. There's a Revelation cast on the Hydras, and those should all be super dead, right? That's a really nice pickup. I would just keep the carriers right there with the Phoenix. Oh wow, yeah, and then the Phoenix actually can mop up the other half.
I like it. Getting some free pickoffs wherever you can. The Corruptors starting to come out though, and there's going to be about 17 or 20 of them popping out in just a little bit. So it is a pretty scary number. Of course, now Hellraiser, when you're going for this big air toss army, sometimes you're kind of happy, or sorry, not when you're going for the air toss army, but sometimes you see a Zerg player and they overmake Corruptors. That's not really ever a problem with this kind of air toss army. When your opponent is going for just non-stop carrier production, they're not making any gateway units whatsoever, you really can just make as many Corruptors as you want and say, cool, let's just kill them.
Yep. At some point, the Protoss, of course, has that window where they can just slap down. And the Templar Archives, you crank out like 6 Archons, and then you can never touch the carriers. But his solution is going to go full Golden Armada, and he's getting Void Rays.
This is what Hearthstone was missing to help deal with the Corruptors, but Corruptors are already on their hunt right now.
But the thing is, when it comes to Void Rays versus Corruptors, there is a melting point. The Corruptors are just going to run in, snipe a carrier, and I think for just getting 1 carrier, how many Corruptors?
7 Corruptors have died this game. I think that 1 or 2 from earlier.
Yeah, so maybe 4 or 5 he traded for a carrier.
That's not a great trade, right? Especially with the Void Rays coming.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Void Rays are like, they have a melting point when it comes to dealing with Corruptors. Like 1 or 2 Void Rays, you're like, oh yes, prismatically lined, save the carriers. No, they don't do anything. But then you get to like 3 or 4, you're like, okay, we can kind of kill Corruptors. But you get to like 6 or 7 Void Rays mixed into those carriers, and you are absolutely melting the Corruptors that try to get close.
Yeah, he's already now going to be finishing up 3 more Void Rays and going up to about 7. Well, maybe 6 now with that Void Ray.
Because if the Corruptors want to kill those Void Rays, keep in mind, they don't do their bonus damage to those. They only do the bonus to the carriers. So it takes the full fighting force of that whole air army to kill a Void Ray. And then even then, the carriers are going to kill 2 or 3 Corruptors during that.
Yeah, how do you feel about mixing in the Infestors and trying to get up either Neuroparasites or Fungal Growths or something on this army? You kind of have to, right?
Yeah, I like the use of Infestors here. Mostly because your opponent is starting to add the Void Rays in, right? So if you take a couple of the Void Rays, then you have something that can really kill those carriers.
It really feels like Denver's answer, though, is to just effectively mono battle on Corruptors. He is starting to add in some Zerglings on the ground.
And also, without Storm, Infested Terran can be good too. I'm gonna be the guy that everyone hates for talking about Infested Terrans too much, but I think they're really awesome. I love seeing them.
I'm with you on that. +3 air weapons is about to finish up, and I wonder if that's going to be the big moment that Hellraiser feels comfortable pushing out, or ZvP is going to wait for that Mothership, because the Mothership adds in a lot of extra tankability and making sure that the detection has to be there and everything. Lings try and go for a bit of a counterattack. Shield Battery keeping at least the Photon Cannon alive, and the Zealots are going to warp in, kill all of this off.
Defense there. Most everything cleaned up. We've got more carriers coming in. Finally, the Templar Archive starts up, and the big mama ship.
14 carriers we're going to have pretty soon. That is kind of nuts.
Yeah, that's insane.
Corruptors find the Oracle. Hey, Oracle.
On the previous big patch, wow, there you go. 2 carriers, 3 carriers just sniped. Say on the big patch, if you have that Graviton catapult upgrade still in the game, those carriers, I think they just killed all those Corruptors. Like the moment they tried to poke.
Oh, yeah. Not being able to have all your interceptors immediately fire is a huge deal.
I think that the burst damage difference is something like 200 damage per carrier, which is gnarly.
Not bad.
Maybe versus Corruptors it's like 150 for the armor. Really effective, but
Okay, well...
the Infestors are coming out. Hive is on the way. I do think Abduct is important here. High Temple are going to be added though, and it looks like we're going to have the Corruptors use their Caustic Spray. That's a lot. That is a lot of chonky boys over there trying to pick the Nexus off. They're not going to get it. And see, that's where it gets rough, because you're trading out Corruptors for Void Rays. The cost difference gets a little bit better there for the Protoss for what they're trading, and they are still killing quite a few of the Corruptors too.
6 more Corruptors on the way. Denver does not have a big bank or anything building up either, though. He has been investing all of his resources that he's been mining. He also has an I wouldn't hate if he had taken maybe a few more bases on the map, like 1 or 2 more, just because it's not like there's any threat of this Golden Armada moving out on its own, right? It's not moving out until it's fully ready, because if you make a misstep, if you are slightly out of position with this army,
oh, it just takes one mistake and it's over. Yeah. I mean, you don't get those Archons underneath the Corruptors. You don't have your Void Rays prismatically aligned. And that's enough Corruptors to one-shot a carrier. So you just come in, you right-click on the carriers, and if you do not handle this properly as a Protoss, everything dies instantly.
Killing off some of the reinforcements, he's going to realize now that the army is on the move. This is Hellraiser's big doomsday push to try and purge the Zerg from this planet. Corruptors taking some big losses.
Mothership, I don't see an Overseer in that army. The Mothership doing a great job covering for everything. There's the Overseer, immediately killed. Now the Infested Terran Bomb is going to get thrown out, but is there enough to be able to deal with this? Those rocket launchers going to try to get some work done as the Corruptors dive in on the carriers, but the Void Rays have all prismatically aligned, and he's starting to rip through that Zerg air army. Hellraiser's Golden Armada paves the way for victory in Game 2.
Defensive play and patience, he gets up to the perfect army composition, and Denver just couldn't handle him. I don't even know what else to say about that game.
Now that's what I call mech, baby.
Golden Armada reigns true and supreme, and that is the proper way to do it, is to get up that carrier count and also to get up the Void Rays to help deal with those Corruptors. Like you were saying, once you start getting up about 6-7 Void Rays, you melt through those Corruptors. They can't actually directly engage like that.
I personally still like the Archons a lot. I mean, I don't think he makes those pushes without them. Like, he just got 2, which I would still say is on the low end. But when you get, he had 7 or 8 Void Rays in that army, and it's just, no. Corruptors are just destroyed. Void Rays also benefit from the same mechanic that the Oracles have, where once they kill a unit, they switch target, like, basically instantly and get that next shot off for free, which when you have that many Void Rays starts to scale very heavily when it comes to just melting down all those Corruptors.
Yeah, there are of course some small things that we could have talked about where he didn't have detection at the very beginning of the fight, so he bled off maybe 5-6 Corruptors, but to be entirely honest, I don't think that those 5-6 Corruptors would have won him that fight, or even come close to it.
No, none.
But we get ready to move into game number 3 now. The series is tied up 1-1. Nate, Protoss player, you're a Zerg player. Protoss player just goes and gets into that super defensive position, gets up that number of carriers against you, and wins the game off that Golden Armada. Game 3, you don't let that happen again, do you? No,
I go to the Battle.net forums and speak very aggressively about my feelings on StarCraft.
Yeah, already saw one of those guys on Team Liquid about PVT, and I'm pretty sure we're going to start getting that about PVZ now.
If I'm a Zerg player, I hate playing against that style, though. And the reason why is Corruptors, like, you have Caustic Spray for buildings, but against that army, Corruptors really is just about all you can do. And you can do the thing where he could have tried to spread creep in front of his base and build a field of Spore Crawlers, which would have helped. But it's not that fun, because when your opponent isn't doing almost any ground at all, I'll just turn half of them into Broodlords and finish the game. That does not work, because you know he's just going to build 8 Void Rays at a time or something ridiculous when you try to counterattack.
But I do like what you were talking about before with Infested Terrans or just getting up more Infestors. I think that can help out a lot.
And he did throw out a bunch of Infested Terrans, but you know what? He didn't have anything else there.
Yeah.
He just threw Infested Terrans underneath a fully maxed out Golden Armada, and it's like, well, if you had 30 spores these carriers were all shooting at, then the Infested Terrans, I think, actually get to spawn and do something.
Okay, we'll see if this guy up here in the top right-hand corner of the map can prevent the Golden Armada. He is the Blue Zerg player, Denver, Fandy Gaming.
Yep. And this man who knows how to build a carrier or 2 or 12. He is our Red Protoss player. He is Hellraiser.
From Wolf's Lair Esports.
Now, see, this is where the pro players have the opportunity to throw off the meta, okay? If you're watching, if you got WCS match coming up, we got the skin thing figured out. Let us stop saying Golden Armada every single game. Can someone please build a flippin' Death Fleet? Can I get a Death Fleet? I want the Destroyer Void Rays skins. Let's go. Let's get it. Let's get it happening. Those skins are all available. You can get like almost everything completely forged now.
You know, we need to come up with just a special name for every single one of those skins then, though.
That's fine.
We got the Death Fleet for, what is that? Is that the Forged ones?
Fear Dragon, I have to compete with the commentators who have never played a mode other than multiplayer in this game, all right? This is where I can finally get my edge.
This is why they pay you the big bucks now.
Yeah. They're not going to use this WCS mod in GSL, because I'm not sure Tasteless knows what any of those unit skins look like.
We'll have to get Nate casting the GSL. That's when we get you there.
Yeah. I think there was a highlight. They didn't know who Amon was.
Oh, yeah, I was watching the GSL. Tasteless like, what is that thing in the
Game's
middle?
been out for 10 years almost.
To be fair, we only saw Amon in the most recent expansion.
Yes, you're right. We've only had 4 years to learn about the tragic genocide Amon committed.
Well, I'm pretty sure I saw Artosis playing Legacy of the Void campaign, though.
Okay, I'll believe it when I see it. Send me the VODs. We have the natural expansion about to finish up for Hellraiser. Automaton's a great map for airplay, by the way. I love it.
Yep.
You can get real freaky on this map. I think whenever I'm playing versus someone that I'm concerned about the air battle on, you actually really want to focus your mid-late game strategy on getting rid of those gold mineral patches, not because you are trying to get the money, but more so because it opens up the field a little bit. Because air armies hitting from that side, any type of siege when it comes to units like carriers or Tempest being able to poke and then easily retreat, it's a real nightmare to deal with. And conversely, Vipers, when you're defending that position in the later stages of the game. Yeah, it's my favorite interaction, actually. I love the way the middle of this map works because it changes and develops over the course of the game from being this extremely strategical point where it's actually a very long ground distance to get from one point to the other. But then once you open it up, it becomes very easy to move around the map.
Oh, yeah. I definitely agree with that. And my other favorite thing is watching a player take the base from the opposite side so they don't get the gas.
That's great.
But you get the minerals. That's always just, it's a fun interaction to see.
Yeah, I do love that.
Well, Phoenix reveals it is going to be a Stargate opening, but an extra gateway also being thrown down just to complete the wall off. We'll see if he adds on a second Stargate in a little bit. Just going to go for the Oracle, though. This is kind of a similar looking opening as last time.
I mean, if you're not the favored player, I don't mind trying repeat styles, even if you're like, well, my opponent's good enough, he's going to adapt. But sometimes you gotta do what's working, you know? And he's going to follow this up with a Robo and a Twilight, so he has no intention of repeating the last game's strategy. But then again, his Archon drop didn't get him a whole lot in the first game.
It didn't. I guess the kind of hope here is also that Denver will sort of be thinking about that a little bit more and saying, oh my god, that was such a frustrating loss where it wasn't a close battle at all in the very end. So for Denver, that can be kind of...
well, Denver will definitely try to avoid letting the game get there this time around. I imagine...
Nice.
Yeah, that's really good. I imagine that if you're Denver, you like win that first game, you're like, yeah, okay, well, this was pretty easy. I handled everything without too much difficulty. Second game, you're on a little bit of tilt. You're like, this is what happens when I play versus a random Protoss. He plays super passively on NA, and I don't poke him for 5 minutes. All of a sudden, there's 7 carriers.
Ooh, second Overlord moves in and gets a beautiful scat off on the Twilight Cancel, and of course is going to see that Robo popping out with a Warp Prism. He sees the Warp Prism as well, and that is really, really nice. So you know that it's not just going to be a really quick Immortal over here. Just going to have to deal with a couple of Gateway units, probably.
Yeah, and the Twilight Council, excuse me, the Temple Archives finishing up. Warp Prism is on the field. Now, I'm curious. Yeah, he has the Oracle with the Prism. There you go.
Yep.
Bodyguard.
Protect him.
Bodyguard right there. That's some squad goals.
It is one of the most frustrating feelings when you just see a bunch of Zerglings. First of all, Zerglings killing an Archon is already frustrating as a Protoss player. But then you see the Archon there, and you're just saying, can I just pick up the morphing in an Archon into my Warp Prism? Is there some technology that's preventing me from picking up a morphing in an Archon?
Yes.
Is that
Giant
unstable?
volatile ball of energy.
Well, in the lore, don't Archons expire after a certain period of time?
Yes.
You know what? I would take it. I would let my Archons expire. If you let them effectively do
What
that
they did in
massive
the
AoE
cinematic?
damage in the cinematic where you can just kill an Ultralist, that'd be sick.
That would be pretty sick.
Just send in my Archons. It's like, you don't know when this is going to die. When it does.
There is some cool lore stuff that I do wish was in the game a little bit more, even if it wasn't as easy to balance. I've told him, man, I want my Vortex back, all right?
Vortex is pretty sick.
Vortex should just do the full Dark Archon thing from Brood War, where it's like Vortex costs 200 energy and drains all the shields. It's like, that's it. You get one shot if you want to do it.
What was that in Brood War?
If the Dark Archon used Mind Control, it drained all of its own shields to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it was super easy. I mean, it's an extremely all or nothing type ability. Obviously, you could build more than one, but it's not like they were exactly cheap either.
Yeah. The only time I used those Dark Archons was in UMS maps. There was a really awesome game called Protect Bob.
Well, I played Protect Bob.
Protect Bob was a great game. All right, Oracle moving in.
Hero Wars. Hero Wars was my game in Brood War.
Hero Line Wars in Warcraft 3.
No.
No? Not your jam?
Never played Warcraft.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I've played maybe 100 or 200 games of Hearthstone. That's my only Warcraft lore experience. That's all I got. A lot of Lings coming out as this push makes its way across the map. +1 attack is done. Charge is about to finish. We got Immortals. And the gold base should be pretty easy to knock down. Look at this, though. The Prism is hitting the main base at the same time with those double Archons.
This is a really scary force in that main base. And Charge finishes up just in the nick of time before the Roaches show up. And sure, Zealots might get picked off, but you can already see Hellraiser is microing those Archons back. Those are the valuable units he wants to keep alive. The Zealots probably don't need to be in a whole position there, but he is busy dealing with this force at the front. The Banelings trying to find the Zealots. They do find some of them, but a lot of them manage to survive. Archon gets picked off. The Immortals survive, but not for very long.
Yeah, really good cleanup here by Denver, smacking this down. All of a sudden, Hellraiser's booting up 3 more Stargates and a Fleet Beacon. No, that's what I'm expecting.
Like, Nate, those are probes, not Stargates.
No, I know. But and you know, if
this is desperation mode.
If he had my brain, I'm like, as soon as that attack fails, I'm like, well, there was only one thing that worked in this matchup so far.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually super desperation mode. This is where a lot of pros players might be thinking.
But his attack got shut down on the first map today, and this is looking like it's going to be a spitting image. He failed the push, didn't kill or do as much as he needed to, and Denver is now just going to return the favor with a haymaker straight to the chin.
This is where you try and protect that. Oh my god, the stasis trap just got corrosive bile. That was amazing. That was the one thing that I think could have maybe allowed Hellraiser to have a decent shot at
Stasis on the Banelings is pretty big here too, by the way. The first two, he had a moment where those Zealots could fight.
It is, but
and then the rest of the Banelings.
Yeah. It is, but also any reinforcements are probably going to be the Zealot Warpins, and then those Banelings are just going to be alive for that. GG. Denver takes the series 2-1.
Denver does it. Denver blows his opponent sky high.
Does a nice job kind of bouncing back from that second game, which can definitely be, again, it's frustrating. I think a lot of the frustration also comes from the fact that you feel like you invest so much time in that game, and then you lose in this very one-sided engagement. You're like, wow, that felt like I did absolutely nothing.
Denver feels dead justice was served.
Yeah, exactly. That's your revenge right there.
I imagine the first thing he's saying to himself is carriers. Oof.
Well, congratulations. He's going to be moving on, as I think many people expected, and going to be facing off versus Lambo in that winners match, which will determine.
I'll be a great delicious.
That's going to be a great ZVZ. Lambo, very good at ZVZ as well. And that's also going to determine who is the first player to advance on out of this group, which is going to be quite exciting. Now, of course, Hellraiser is not out of it just yet. You're going to see that in the next match, he's facing off versus Gerald in a Protoss versus Protoss, which, of course, is going to be with In Control and Nate in just a little bit. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We got more StarCraft action coming your way.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series. I'm your host, Nathan Fabricant, joined on the desk,
And I'm Jeff!
by Dr. Jeffrey, who has a PhD in kicking butt and playing StarCraft.
Yeah.
You put in enough years. What is there a further degree of study? Like, what would 20 years of research into StarCraft, what would that be?
God Emperor of Mankind.
Okay, well, there you have it. So, thankfully, I'm in good hands, and I'm going to leave all of the smart stuff to Jeff as we get ready to go into our next game. I just want to say, if you enjoy going in a pool of your own filth, but you like having some control over it, there's a wonderful skit for the spawning pool. That's right, the Simulan Zerg spawning pool. If you ever wanted to be in the most vile pit of whatever is in there that you could possibly be, now you can go in a fake, sustained, controlled one. It will probably still give you some extra limbs you didn't want, so just a fair warning. How do you feel about that, Jeff?
Beautiful skin, supports the pro gaming scene, gets yourself some good-looking stuff so that you can play StarCraft looking even better.
Okay.
If I could reskin myself in different ways, if I could take
Do you want to be Simulant Jeff?
How cool would that be? Think about that. In like
be
a
a
digital
robot.
future when we just get to project a different image of ourselves. That'd be amazing.
That would be kind of cool.
Super.
You just walk around as a robotic version of yourself when you want to be.
No, I would be Chris Hemsworth all the time.
Okay. That's
I would just be Chris Hemsworth, and people would be like, "Hey, Chris Hemsworth." I'd be like, "Good eye." That's it.
fair. That's fair. We are ready to get into our match. The players were eager to jump into this one, as it's going to be Hellraiser versus Gerald.
Gerald.
Only allows me to think of that old Nickelodeon show. That's it. That's all I got. That's all I can think about when I think about Gerald. I don't think I've ever met
Which one?
a Gerald in my entire life.
There's a show called Gerald?
I think he was in Hey Arnold, wasn't he?
Oh, Hey Arnold. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a good show.
I think that is the only Gerald I've ever been made aware of. His name has T in it, which makes me think of something completely different in the game. But anyway, in the bottom right, he's our Blue Protoss player. His name is Gerald.
Matthias Budziak.
Jeffrey, do it.
And in the top left-hand side, from Team Welvin? Is that what that says?
Wolven, I guess.
Wolven.
Wolven.
It's Hellraiser!
Now, when can we get this guy like a burning
Ogden.
skin? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where's the?
You know what Hellraiser's in reference to, by the way?
I just assumed that.
The horror movie?
Yeah, that's fine.
It's that or a biker gang. It's the two choices we got for the most part.
Do they do biker gangs in Europe? I thought that was like a super.
They do, it's like sidecar gangs. What is that called? the moped and the sidecar. They load it up. They grab their like best billy club and they drive down to the local village dairy market and they're like, "Hey, you will give me 3 of your best goats." And they're like, "No, you cannot have any of our goats." And they're like, "Well, I guess it's about to get bumpy, Mr. Lumpy." And then they dance off.
Nice. Well, that sounds way
But
more
it's-
wholesome
yeah,
than
it's-
what American biker gangs do. So,
Oh, for sure. I mean, they're really nice people in Europe.
yeah. I'm gonna assume that they did get that movie, so maybe he's just a big horror fan.
Who is it?
Oh no, it's gotta be
Game
Andy.
paused.
It's nobody.
Whoa, I've never seen it
Yeah, that-
freeze like that.
isn't that
And
interesting?
someone be able to pause it
And a pause?
before someone
Like-
lagged out.
That's weird. The game is constantly evolving. We're having a little bit of a pause here. Thank you guys. Thank you
Yeah.
for tuning in.
We got a lot of StarCraft coming up today, so for those of you guys just joining us, there's a lot cool stuff coming up that both players are just making sure that everything is good before we get back into the game. We've got quite a few matches. This is a lower bracket match for our Europe group today, and then we're going to do the winners match, then the decider, and then we go to the WCS Americas section, where today playing is my #1 favorite player of all time, whose name isn't Gumiho. It's Neeb. I can't wait to see him. The game has started. We are back in. We have to get into the game. You're missing this. There's a probe chasing another probe.
We're back in.
I feel like it could be the equivalent one day of like cute cat videos. Just like probes running around, tackling each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Think about how horrifying a probe is, though. Like, it's this...
Is it really horrifying, though?
No, I mean, if you actually saw, like, a hovering off the ground, I would call it probably like an 80 pounds, maybe 100 pounds of inanimate, like just kind
So you think it might be like one of those things when you're outside the matrix chasing you without the tentacles,
No,
basically?
not quite.
What a probe would look
But
like?
it has diamond cutting, like lasers. So if it is going after you, it's literally cutting into your flesh with like a industrial tool. It's pretty messed up.
Yeah. The same could be said of a drone or an SCV, though. I don't know what about a probe.
Yeah.
I thought the idea was that probes just looked cuter than the other ones.
No, the reason I was saying that is because you were saying it's like a cat video, and I'm like, kind of. Only if the cat was like capable of driving up against you and extracting your shin. You know what I mean? Like,
Have you met many cats in your days, Jeff? Because that wouldn't surprise me.
yeah, I know a lot of cats, cool ones.
I was gonna try to make a cats reference after that, but you got me.
That oracle's not real.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not a real.
Whenever
oracle.
people show up with a hallucinated oracle, I'm always like, oh, you. And I know it's, you know, why not? Like, it moves about the same pace as a hallucinated phoenix, but I just like the little mind game StarCraft players play with each other.
If you knew you were playing somebody who like really hated oracle
Yeah.
openings, then you could maybe get in their head a little bit. Or if you beat someone with an oracle rush and then you played them again, and in the second game you did the hallucinated oracle, that could do it too.
We're going to have some aggression coming out from our red Protoss, Mr. Hellraiser here. He's going across the map with some stalkers. The Twilight Council behind this, of course, is not going to be of any use right now. He's building a Nexus, so it's not... This is not like a full-on crazy attack, but you'll notice he's got a lot more stalkers than his opponent, and this is going to cause some problems, because behind this it's Phoenix, and at this point in time, there's not that many Phoenix for Mr. Gerald.
No, there are not.
Like, hey, what's up?
Coming down to help. He's going to force the ramp here. Going full Alpha Star is Hellraiser, picking off his opponent's stalkers. And, yeah. No, showing the blatant disregard for the ramp. I don't know why he's pulling back.
I do not know either. Yeah, he's got a sentry coming up against Phoenix that's actually pretty
I feel like
explicitly bad.
I feel like he could just kill the pylon on these gateways.
Yep, and actually getting the Phoenix here would be huge. Because 3 Phoenix now down to 2 is a big deal. He's not going up this ramp, he's just happy with his damage. This is still pretty close to game-ending damage, and Gerald's like over-eager to fight with insignificant units. He's like, hey, look, I still have less units than you, come on up. And so he's like, I guess I will.
So I guess I will come inside of your
Exactly
base and then kill everything. And that's going to be a G to the E to the G, E.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't try too hard to make that work. 9, 10 probes dead. This is death numbers, guys. You'll notice on the production tab, nothing coming out here for Gerald, and he is out the door as game number 1 is sealed and delivered. Now, this game came down to one moment in time. The force field actually missed. He tried to block off the stalkers between the pylon and that spot. Had he done that, does he win the game? No. Does he do it? Does he buy enough time that he can get another warp in? Yes. And then there's 3 Phoenix, but instead of what ends up happening is he misses the force field, and then instead of waiting at the top of the ramp for stuff, he just dives down, picks up with the Phoenix, takes a bad fight, and loses from there. And PvP is literally that volatile. You take one bad fight, and it kind of snowballs with stalkers against your tech like that, you just die.
It's rough. It's not easy, especially considering, like you said, the sentry, the force field's got to actually get something done there. It's not going to contribute to the combat. And very good aggressive play there out of Hellraiser, showing a good bit of confidence in this matchup.
And you know, Nate, you asked, I mean, not ask or hit even, but you just bring up a good thing. It was only 7 stalkers, and behind that there is an expansion. There were probes coming out. There was a Twilight Council, so it's not like this was some crazy 4-gate all-in. This is meant to apply pressure. Maybe you get a pylon, maybe you get a stalker or 2, you get them to pull the probes off. You reveal the tech. If they are going Phoenix, that shows up. If they opened Oracle, your attack happens at a really inconvenient time. So it's a very safe opening. It's very good. But I have to say, just the way it was handled was really poor, and it ends up being a game-ending opening. So it was...
Yeah. It's one of those gut punch builds, right? Where you'll see it every now and again. It's like when a Zerg's like, oh, I'm just going to send like 6 roaches. Like, this shouldn't do anything. But then the other player just doesn't have any units, or they're out of position. Suddenly you get a bunch of worker kills, and everything spirals out of control. It's like, well, this really shouldn't have done that much. Right. But Hellraiser capitalizing on the opportunity, and that finds him 1 map away from eliminating our first player here in the Southeast. He is wearing blue. His name is Gerald. Now I just want to say Gerald because
Gerald.
His in-game name has the T. I feel like those 2 names are completely different.
They are.
I don't know how we got Gerald and Gerald.
Maybe he misspelled his own name, which would be kind of weird.
That, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Maybe they thought it was a typo when he submitted Gerald, and someone was like, well, I've never seen that name before. I don't know. In the top left, his opponent, in red, Hellraiser. I'm sorry, Blizzard Esports team. I'm not trying to say you can't read. I'm just confused.
Well. Okay. Both players, by the way, if you take that kind of situation out, we're opting for fairly normal things. Like Twilight Council is the other opening typically do. So Stargate, Phoenix is a great opening that we saw from Gerald, but that type of attack specifically is quite strong against it. I do have to say, though, it did come down to that bad fight. He doesn't need to go down the ramp. He doesn't need to grab the Stalkers there. He was another warping away from having a similar amount of units, and then with the aid of 3 or 4 Phoenix, he could win that fight. And the power of the Phoenix, too, is there's not really a great retreat from there. You'd have to recall, but even in doing so, you probably lose a unit or 2. So both players playing with fire there, but it's Hellraiser who comes out quite a bit ahead with the win.
Yeah, and just really good execution there on the strategy. He's got a second probe moving out, so perhaps some proxy shenanigans in control.
Yes, and I love this, too. So he will full-on scout with this probe, and that is the normal time. A lot of players opt to scout quite late in PvP, especially in that European scene, and they show up just to kind of confirm that it's normal stuff. But when that probe goes in there, and I bet you, by the way, I bet there's a little bit of Hollywood in Hellraiser here. He's going to be like, no, I'm going to hang around. Maybe I drop a pylon by your gateways, and I want to block the Nexus. And, man, look at this probe. It's so occupied.
You should really try to kill this probe so that it doesn't do nothing bad.
Look at this, man. I'm way in your base. There's no way there's a proxy. But this is beautiful. It's brilliant because, again, the way your brain works in a PvP is when that probe is in there, you are not worried about a proxy. And to Nate's point, maybe he actually purposely loses it to really sell it.
But maybe Protoss players are usually so good about getting their probe out that the only reason his opponent would leave the probe in here for the Stalkers is because he wanted him to think he wasn't proxying.
No, Nate, you know better than me that Protoss players are not that complex of human beings. This is exactly what it was. If that probe dies right there, that is the only probe out on the map, and he is not going to scout at all.
It's a gentleman's game, then. You lost your probe, you must not be proxying me.
That's correct. It takes the paranoia of a Terran player to kill a scouting probe like that and be like, no, there could be another one. Just setting my reaper out.
Always do, actually. Yeah, every time. Good catch here with these steps for
Gerald.
Gerald. Just going to smack this down. And that was all a ploy to sell the Oracle even harder.
You know what he's got coming out after that? Sentry and a Stalker, and he's across the map, which is not in position to defend against the Oracle. And this is game-ending damage. This is, I mean, he might just insta-leave. It's actually a possibility. It's for elimination, so he probably should.
He's going to
recall back. He's dead. He's dead. You actually might even just lose the Oracle. He's going to... Nope, yeah, he's going to... and that's fine. 11 probes.
Yeah. 14 workers to 20.
Show the graph.
Oh, the fancy Fear Dragon hotkey graph.
That's not a graph. I'm trying to show the graph, Jack. Are you serious?
Dude.
You know the lore behind a freaking Hellion, and you know speed...
I'm not the guy that observes. This is all I got. Fanciest observing trick I know is the big zoom out, because no one else ever does it.
You almost feel like a Cranston impression, like the Knox. Like, I'm not the one who observes. Now, this is nice return damage. This is obviously going to give him
This buys him a new lease on life, right?
Oh, yeah.
He has the expansion done.
Now he's only down 5 workers, which is still a very big deal in this matchup, but obviously a lot more doable than the 11.
Yep.
And it is going to be Blink here from Gerald.
Do you think he builds at some point another Oracle to try and like one-tap the probes here? Because there's obviously with the battery he can't just send one.
There's a funny invisible threshold because this is, keep in mind, his second Oracle. He lost the first one.
Right.
The third Oracle is this weird invisible line that if you get to that point, it really sucks out a lot of the teeth from your army and your tech and your ability to kind of constantly churn out probes. So you have to do a ton of damage. And seeing Blink on the way already, and his opponent's obviously aware that another Oracle was made, it's very unlikely that there's not a shield battery, there's not Stalkers, there's not stuff to respond to that.
Right.
So reinvesting into that's a bit too much.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation, Joe.
Well, I'm like the bad scientist of Protoss out there. I'm like, let me tell you how bad 3 Oracles are, because I've done it a ton of times, and I'll probably do it tomorrow when I ladder. I can explain why things are good and bad, but in game, there's still this like I've always had the gambler's mindset where I'm like, it's bad, but maybe because it's bad, they're not expecting it.
Well, that's the harsh part of ladder.
Yeah.
Because that is very true, though. That is a huge part of it.
Oh yeah. And it works sometimes, and that one time it works will poison you for the other 6 times it doesn't. You know, you're like, well, it worked that one time.
I had that same realization where I did the breakdown. I'm like, guys, my BC builds are even better, even though they got nerfed, because enough other players stopped doing it that Zergs are just going to be not as used to playing against it, and thus will perform worse against it.
Yeah.
Thereby making up the gap. So you never know.
Dead Oracle.
Gets the tag with the revelation, and that's it.
Gerald was doing this last time too. He's opting for early forge, which is kind of cool to see. It's a stylistic thing. It's not good or bad necessarily one way or the other. Upgrades are a big idea in all matchups, but in PvP, the first upgrade's not super big, but if you can get to 2 attack upgrade and your opponent's neglecting upgrades, you can really feel it in the Archons hitting Zealots and stuff like that. So we'll have to see if that ends up being the case, but otherwise, army composition-wise...
That looks a little lopsided in control. Oh, wow, there's one of the stalkers.
Ramps going up.
2 Immortals, Prism. We've got a Zealot in there. There's a couple of Sentries versus just Stalkers. And his first Immortal just finished, by the way, for Gerald. And he's throwing down 2 shield batteries.
This is a little bit of the killer instinct that players have done a great job of developing. I think back to the old days of MC. He was so good about being like, well, I'm ahead. I'm not going to mess around. I'm just going to go end the game right now. That's kind of what Hellraiser is trying to do. I love the Warp Prism Micro. Picking up and going back. He might be like, you know what, there's a few too many units here for me to be comfortable fighting here, especially with those force fields. Just going to back up a little bit. Warping in mostly sentries, which are a good answer for those stalkers. They don't take any kind of bonus damage or whatever, so the fight gets sustained.
Yeah, and he doesn't have charge. He doesn't have charge, so the Adept will also just be probably a little bit more effective in general. As we see, Gerald kind of sends his own Zealot forward and mostly just sits there and gets attacked. Now the probes are going to come off the line. The Adepts helped a lot with picking these off. We've got 9 probes eliminated so far, and as you were talking about in control, those Stalkers, not exactly the beefiest units to use against the Immortals here. Another Immortal does come down the ramp for Gerald, but is it going to be a little bit too late? I think so. He's got the Observer for the high ground spot, and yeah, okay, save your Immortal for now. Maybe it's going to die anyway, but the natural is completely forfeit. G is called, and Hellraiser will eliminate Gerald and move on to the decider match of our group today.
Yep, in the kind of, I would say, continuation of the likely storylines continues. I do think that Hellraiser vying for that second spot sounds about right.
Yeah.
Poor Gerald, this is a tough stacked group. The last 2 European groups have been 3 or 4 very good players in that group, which is a little bit unique, because we've seen it, especially in the Americas groups, that there's definitely been a couple, and these are all great players. I'm not, no disrespect, but like, you know, new faces getting a nice result, but facing reality. Whereas in the European scene, it's like there's just so many good players. All these groups are amazing.
Yep, every group extremely difficult. And hey, cool debut for Gerald. Gets to play on a stage, get some experience, and perhaps next time we'll be able to make it another step further. And that's the grind, right?
Right.
Most of the players that we see competing in WCS have been playing StarCraft for upwards of 8-9 years.
Yeah.
StarCraft 2.
He just got $675. He's feeling, he's okay.
Yeah.
He do better.
Yeah. Playing the video game. That does mean that our next series is going to be that winners match that we were discussing. This is going to be a little bit, I think a little bit more of a higher level match, right, that we're looking at. Lambo going up against Denver. Lambo should definitely be a favorite. What are your thoughts, Jeffrey?
Well, Lambo's a very, very good Zerg, one of the best in Europe, of course, but specifically off that ZvZ. He's always been dangerous in that matchup.
Yep.
Well read, well studied. He should win here, but Denver looked really good in his match, and is definitely a guy who's had a couple good WCS runs himself.
All right, well, that's what's coming up after the break. Lambo versus Denver. You're watching the World Championship Series.